right. Adele, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Okay, yeah. Well, hello everyone. For those that are just getting here now, my name's Adele Sakey. I guess a little bio about myself. I recently graduated from the new school where Victor goes as well, as I just found out. Small world. But yeah, I graduated from the new school this past May with a major in culture and media and a minor in code as a liberal art. And those are two just kind of like majors that are very unique to the new school. They do things weirdly, I don't know. But yeah, so graduated from the new school. One of the primary reasons why I decided to go to school in New York was because of the, music, business, career opportunities, internship opportunities that the city provides. And I was, grateful enough to have the opportunity to take advantage of all those opportunities. But yeah, I mean, that's not to say that there aren't still ways to go about getting internships and succeeding and thriving in internships and job opportunities virtually in a remote work from home environment, as COVID now makes it necessary. But yeah, so I currently intern. I'm a marketing intern at Arista Records. That's Arista. I can also just put it in the chat. I don't know why I spelled it out. But it is a division of Sony Music Entertainment. So under the Sony umbrella, there's several different labels, and all the major labels kind of operate in the same way in that it's broken up as you get down. So Arista is one of the major labels under Sony, and then there's Epic, RCA, Columbia, Masterworks, and some other small joint ventures and partnerships, distribution agencies. The Orchard, which is an independent distribution agency, also functions within Sony. So there's, a lot of different divisions, a lot of different job roles, job opportunities. And that's something that I wasn't completely aware of before coming into Sony and like a major label where there are, hundreds of employees who all do something slightly different. So I guess before I kind of get into starting at Sony, I'm going to kind of backtrack and talk a little bit about I guess just go in chronological order through my work experience and kind of what led me to where I am now. But so when this was when I was in high school, I got kind of like an early start in terms of knowing or understanding that I really wanted to do something within the music industry, not knowing particularly what. So I started to kind of try my hand at different things. I initially picked up like being a music journalist and kind of just like writing for different blogs. Realized I wasn't too passionate about journalism in general, even if it's music based. So I started photographing shows, sneaking my camera into concerts, and then eventually working up to being able to, email a publicist or a press contact and receive a photo pass for a show and then go and photograph that. And then the photos would appear on a blog somewhere. Then my photos started to get noticed. And I am going to drop my photography portfolio in the chat as well. That's that. Just so y'all have like a visual aid, I don't know. But yeah, so photos started to get noticed. I got a Twitter DM from this guy, Chris Mortimer, who's the head of digital everything, I guess, digital media at Interscope Records. That was when I was a senior in high school. So after that, he kind of like approached me being like, love your photos. Like, would you want to, at the time I was living in Boston, would you want to, photograph our artists when they tour through your area? And I was like, yes, absolutely. That's incredible. And he was really like my first solid, you know, connect within the music industry. And that's kind of how I started to understand that it's really necessary to build out your network. Because in any industry, but especially in music or entertainment, it's really about who you know. And that's something that's caused me anxiety time and time again, just being a socially anxious person. And it's sometimes difficult to work up the strength to go out and network, or it might feel inauthentic. And yeah, but I mean, like, it does get easier with time. I can say with certainty and practice. But yeah, so Chris was my first like major connection within the music industry. And then once I graduated high school, I moved to New York, started, you know, still shooting shows for Interscope in New York, but then wanted to scope out the internship scene as well. So this was my second semester in school. So it was the winter time, the spring semester. I landed an internship at Pop Gun Presents, which is, I will also type this in the chat. It is a music promoter based in Brooklyn. So they own a venue called Elsewhere, which is in Bushwick, if Victor might know. But yeah, so they just like put on shows, a wide range of genres, like everyone from like Charlie XCX to, I don't know, Toro y Moi. I don't know if any of those names like spark any kind of, I don't know, but a very wide range of artists. And it was a cool space. We were like literally in the basement of the venue. So when like an EDM act or someone was like sound checking, we would hear like the thump, thump, thump of the bass. But other than that, I mean, like, I didn't really enjoy that internship just because I felt like my work output wasn't being completely valued. I didn't feel like there was strong structure in place. And I've come to realize that I'm someone that relies on structure, and likes having like an HR part of the company. And just like, that's why I like Sony, because, you know, it is larger. So there is more structure and formality. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't all a loss because it's still, you know, experience. And at the end of the day, internships, whatever internship you get, it's what you make them. It's like what you make of it, what you put into it, you're going to get back. And yeah, so then after Pop Gun Presents, I interned at a small PR and management company, literally run by one person, one woman, named Ava. And the bulk of the work that I did for her was remote working. So that's something that I wanted to, you know, highlight for you guys, is that even like pre-pandemic, like a lot of people in the music industry, especially like smaller independent organizations or companies or, you know, professionals are working remotely. So it is like definitely possible to find remote work moving forward, especially in the age of COVID. But yeah, that was really nice. She's great. I mean, other than remote working, I would like meet up with her maybe like once a month at a cafe in New York, since we're both in New York. But other than that, all like remote working. And it was kind of more busy work, just like she would like send me a template of like what she wanted me to send to press people, and then I would send like 500 emails all with the same content, so nothing like too creative, but did give me an understanding of how PR operates in the music space. And then that's what led into my first internship at Sony, which wasn't at Arista. It was actually in digital sales, which is a fancy way of saying streaming. So my department, my supervisors rather, were the account managers between Sony and the streaming services like Spotify, Pandora, YouTube Music, SoundCloud, Apple Music. And on the day-to-day, you know, maintaining those relationships. Maybe RCA has a priority release out from Khalid, and we really want it to, like, you know, get in all the pop playlists on Spotify. You know, then my supervisors would go to their partner at Spotify and be like, hey, this is a priority for us. We need to see it in these playlists, high placement, meaning at the top of the playlist rather than like the 20th track down. And yeah, and it's also like monitoring, okay, are the DSPs, digital streaming platforms, are they allocating the same amount of support to Sony artists as they are to our competitors? So Warner artists, Universal artists, and then, you know, some independent artists. But Warner and Universal are the other two major labels that we're really keeping an eye on in terms of their negotiations with these streaming services. And I think like Warner did partner with Spotify. So that was something that we were keeping our eye on to see how that impacted Spotify playlist placement for Sony artists in particular, if that would decrease. So I was at that internship for a year, and then I ended up connecting with another intern who later graduated and got a job at Arista as a marketing coordinator. And she called me in for an interview for an internship position at Arista. I didn't end up getting the internship. They ended up going with someone else, which is, you know, fine. But then, you know, I maintained the connections with the people that I interviewed with and even got coffee, you know, throughout that semester. And, you know, just making sure that I'm still at the top of their minds. And then when the time came when they were hiring interns for the next semester, I was called back in, interviewed again, this time with two senior vice presidents, and ended up getting the internship. So that's really a testament that, you know, things with jobs, especially now, I have to remind myself this continuously. But, you know, just because you don't get a job, that's not the end of the world, even if you really wanted it. You know, I truly have faith that if one opportunity doesn't pan out, that's because a better, more fitting opportunity is on the horizon. So yeah, and then that's also kind of turned into reality again when, so I was interning at Arista in the spring, and that's when everything transitioned to work from home. It was quite crazy. And then kind of job opportunities ended up just falling by the wayside because there's a hiring freeze. And that applied to interns as well. So I was asked to extend my internship, but then it wasn't approved on the company end because the company as a whole wasn't hiring interns for the summer. But then again, you know, kept myself at the top of my supervisor's mind. So when they were looking for interns for this fall semester, they asked me back. So that's where I'm at now at Arista, primarily in their marketing department, assisting. Have I been talking for so long? Like, will you cut me off after like a certain point? Like, I don't want to take up like this whole time.
No, you're fine.
Am I good with time?
Yeah, you're right on track. You're
okay.
perfect.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
I just wanted to check. But yeah, so I mean, at Arista, I assist 3 product managers, and at a label, product managers, different labels will have different like terminology for these things. But in general, a product manager in a label setting is the person that sees marketing initiatives through to fruition. So if, I don't know, just using the example of Khalid again, if Khalid's releasing an album, his product manager is gonna coordinate with the A&R to make sure that, okay, the album's coming along. Once the album has been finalized, they're gonna, you know, think about creative marketing concepts, but then also just marketing assets, so music videos, press photos, album art, all that type of stuff. They coordinate with different creatives, different agencies to, you know, just see it all together. But so I assist 3 of those. There are 3 on in Arista. It's a pretty small label in comparison to the other Sony labels. And then I also kind of work cross-functionally. So I'm also helping the streaming department just with new release scheduling. There's a lot of like little nitty-gritty details that we got to get right with the metadata of each song that we submit, and then each DSP, digital streaming platform, has a different way that you need to submit the songs, both for distribution, which is one thing, so that's how you get your songs onto the streaming platforms, but then also, you know, editorial support, so putting it into a playlist, a Spotify-owned playlist, an Apple Music-owned playlist, what have you. And then I also assist the publicity department just with general outreach, press outreach. And then we also have a digital marketing department that focuses on YouTube and TikTok mainly. And then also we'll have their eye on like emerging digital media platforms and, you know, partnering with them to best promote our artists. But yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good sum up, I'd say, of what I've done and where I'm at. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was a great explanation of the many hats that you've worn so far in your music industry career. Victor, if you're ready, we are ready to hear you.
Yeah. Hi guys, my name is Victor. Thanks so much, Adele. That was awesome. It's true. It's a very. It's not the easiest thing to have the capacities to fill the opportunities that may be thrown your way. So it's really, it's you know, you got to make it, you know, with what you're given. And as I said, in the music industry, it's very difficult. You can be completely shunned, you know, faster than you know, you can be working, unless you have corporate stability and you're doing something in particular, like in specific, then you're vulnerable. And from being in, like, you know, from experiential learning and being in part of internships, you're always in that sort of thin line whether you could be used or not. So I thought Adele's sort of like all the experiences that she's gone through is like a testament of that, of being able to sustain and continue, because they'll just call somebody else. So you have to be, I think there's a word for it, indispensable. So I'm Latino, obviously. English is my second language. I think in Spanish. I write in Spanish in my mind before I anything else. I came to the United States when I was about maybe 15 years old. Went to high school here and in New York City, and went to school. I like politics. I went to school for political philosophy. I study ethics, and particular, I like Kant, so I studied studies on a priori and error and the physical with Kant's philosophies of democracy, and that was like my focus. I got into the music industry. I've always been a music buff. In Ecuador, we didn't have cable, and one of the things that we did have was MTV as a channel because of
Victor, you're frozen currently.
Watching the movie into learning more about music and wanting to be a part of it. So that's.
Victor, I think you're frozen. So I'll let you know whenever you come back.
Yes, is it better?
Yeah, you're back. We probably missed like the last 20 seconds. So if you can just rewind 30 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just trying to connect. I work in the music industry. I was trying to connect where that came from, and it really does come from being able to have what I call contemporary, the connection of visuals and audio. and how videos sort of shaped my understanding of music, watching bands like Nirvana that I knew my cousins liked, but I was watching a video without by myself, right? So it just the influence of it. So fast forward, the way that I started was literally through school. I didn't necessarily get an internship inside a label. Like I forced my way inside a network. I got invited by a colleague of mine that was interning for the Wall Street Journal when we were in undergrad at Lehman, and he was photographing for the entertainment department. So he knew. So I know of I started with ASAP Worldwide back in 2013. That's the music group that put out ASAP Rocky and Ferg, and before that I was a fan of their movement because they were Harlem rappers that were battling with another. So if you guys know from New York, Harlem is divided from the Spanish side and then the regular African American side, and it's east and west. So on the west side, you had the ASAP Worldwide at the just mob known as Mob, and then on the east side, you had the Tan Boys that was led by Bodega Bams, and obviously on the other side, it was ASAP Yams. And they had it was just amazing times. I'm talking about 2009, 2010, and 8, 9, 10. And by 2011, Pesos came out, the song came out, and they were known worldwide. So that's their story. I got invited because a colleague of mine knew how much of a fan I was of the ASAP Mob. So he's like, hey, listen, I'm going to a party. This is now 2012, 13. So I get invited to the party. It was like a Bushwick sort of clandestine party. It was huge. ASAP Rocky was already with like, I believe, platinum songs. So it was really an interesting thing. So we snuck into VIP. Like there was a VIP on the second floor, and my colleague was trying to get the best shot. We were trying to get the best experience. So we snuck in there, and when they were kicking people out, by the time they were like, who is this person? Who is he with? One of the artists that was there, his name is ASAP Taiwai. He was like, oh, he's with me. We had already struck in a conversation. I had networked the room. And so that was a lot to stay. And then the rest is history, because I was given sort of like a unofficial interning assistant position to his management team. And and that was really good for me because by the time they were already, I believe, had signed with RCA. And I think they're still signed to RCA, the ASAP Worldwide. And I never necessarily got to work inside the label or any of their inside team or whatever they were doing with the ASAP Mob. I was given the opportunity to work directly with the artists that were coming up, because there are like 10 or 11 artists in the group, and you only knew of Ferg maybe, but at that time, Rocky. So everything rolled around Rocky. Yams was sort of like the mastermind of all of it. He just had a great vision towards what the future would be, and he had a great style, and uniting that with urban sort of contemporary was just easy for him to put it together. He was just a genius. So rest in peace to go ASAP Yams. But so I got to work with Taiwai, and I also had the chance eventually and around the same time to work with, at the time I was living in Baltimore, ASAP Ant. Now they're both kind of popular. I believe Ant is more popular than Taiwai, but those are the only two artists that I work directly. And working with them allowed me to sit in like unofficial think tanks and this is underground stuff. And I bring this up because I want to have this conversation where there's a lot of stuff that happens on the ground that is the same stuff that happens in a label, but it's like the muscle of then what A&Rs or people in higher places sort of like, not that they exploit, but they utilize rightfully, because it's like the ears and eyes to the ground. And that is what A&Rs do. The A&Rs is it my internet okay? Yeah, okay. So A&Rs are basically the ears to the ground. And when you look at the times of Clive Davis and all of these the history of music, you see A&Rs like going around these places to try to learn about the information and then put it on, and then possibly promote it and make it into popular music, right? What happened to Duke Ellington, and then all these sort of artists that like followed or trended music. It's all connected to who you found and the events that you went and how you were at that bar listening to that one band that, you know, changed the game forever. So I, because there's so much independent music, and because like 2013 is like a contemporary, I felt like that was something that was in nature in me to continue to look for that talent on the ground. And that's sort of like, to me, I spent about maybe 6 to 7 years doing this before, because in 2018 was the first time that I finally got out and did and worked it on my own music group with a partner that I associated with. But what I did with ASAP Taiwai was literally artist development in the sense of creativity. So Taiwai was an artist who, for example, had lots of assets. He was able to ride these dirt bikes the way DMX used to with the Rough Riders. He in the same spot in Harlem. He wasn't much of a specific, like, he didn't have a lot of publishing talent. Like his writing talent wasn't that great. And I was able, for example, to connect with him and to, because these artists, they have egos, and when you tell them that they need to work better on something, it's hard, especially if they're popular, you know, very popular. So it was very difficult, but at the same time it was a great learning experience because I was able to relate with that directly. And I was successful with him because he was still not signed to the label, but he was part of their group. And the work that we did together, we did a couple of tracks. They hit about maybe a couple of millions of streams because of the content that was created from my creativity onto him, because I was working for him. And so that got me into better positions in the music industry. People knew about me. And I got hired to work directly with Bodega Bams as a main artist with the Tam Boys. By this time, you had the Tam Boys, for example, at a lower level than the ASAP Mob, even though they were starting together during the late 2008 and 9. So 2011, the ASAP Mob rises, the Tam Boys continue, Bodega Bams, but Bodega Bams at that time, they were looking for people to staff because they were working on a Reebok campaign with the Little Baby. At the time, Little Baby was coming out from Atlanta and Quality Control. They were pushing Swahili and Bodega, and then JIDK. So when Bodega got put on by Reebok, they asked around, and I was able to, because of the networking that I was able to hire. And so I moved on to the Tam Boys with a higher representation with Bodega. Everything went well. It was going super well. We were actually thinking, specifically Bodega, we were working on a song with Daniel Hernandez, also known as Tekashi 6ix9ine. The call song Shinigami. It was right before the cusp of him coming out. He was one of the artists that was working with Bodega at the time. There were other artists, but that's one of the ones that resonate the most during the time. I didn't get to specifically work with him, with his team, but the work that we did with Bodega, because Bodega was a feature, and at that time Tekashi 6ix9ine was lower than Bodega, so the feature on that was like, you gotta look up to me, and he was always humble with that. And the video is really interesting, creative. Daniel Hernandez has always been a creative artist. It's unfortunate what happened to him, but out of Brooklyn, he was known as one of the most creative and most insane person to think of, and a lot of artists stayed away from it because it was completely game changing. So I worked with Bodega, and it went so well. And then he had, well, at the time it was an NDA, it was non-disclosure, but like now I could talk about it. But he got put on the Showtime show MILF, and he got a 2-year contract as an actor. And so it's kind of like, oh, my job was done. There was nothing to do, so it's my internship was over there. And but at that time that was happening, I was working on to developing a party for them for their some 10-year anniversary. And I met some artists, these 2 Latin artists, and that was the push that I think I needed, because I wanted to try the creative development, the ears to the ground philosophy, and curate artists from nothing, because I was working with a music group that had artists that were already kind of developed, and you needed to sort of push that last creative effort. And then I was working with a really popular artist that was more urbanly popular and regional. And so I thought of like, and my political sort of mentality kind of kicked in, and seeing it's really Plato, right? Because when you study Plato in philosophy, you learn that, you know, an individual is a real reason for a republic, and that's just a linear thing, that an individual creates families that create villages that then create communities, and you have countries like that. And that basic philosophy, sort of, when I wanted to work in the music industry, it was always a question like, why do I have to always work with like New York artists? Like, what if I work with artists outside and I bring them to New York? Or like, so I started researching more into that, and I had open ears for it. At the time, I already had there was this submission from an artist that I had looked into, and I was really trying to work with, from North Carolina. His name is Rhetoric. He was already kind of on board, and then I got an email with content, and a DM for with Matt Miller. He's an artist himself. Now he's more in the executive, but and I thought he's from Arkansas, and then I just thought his music was really good, and his, you know, and that's the thing about music and being in A&R. You have to have your ears to the ground, and you kind of have to go and work with the gut to know that this is something that could develop. And to do that, you have to understand, you know, beyond the marketing and the distribution and the platforms, how likely are people to listen to that? How likely are people to click on something because of the title, or because of the what you said, or the line that they want to hear? With Taiwai, I got him his first more than 1 million stream because when I was working with him, it was during the election of Donald Trump. And I'm in politics. I'm constantly reading politics, and I read somewhere that Trump at that time was the word Trump, the name Trump was that biggest thing researched on the internet. So I thought, let's make a song about Trump and then drop a line. Don't make it political, because that's the first thing that he said. No, I'm not politics. I don't care. I'm like, okay, so don't make it political. Make something of it. Like, just, and he came out, wrote a line in it, and then titled it Trump, and his Spotify went up to the point that they had to take the song down, and it was reposted with all of whatever had happened in the label. And I was never invited to that. And as a matter of fact, I had to deal with a lot of you know, it's like horrible experiences, because it was good until then the serious shit started going down, which was the income, the Spotify plays, the You're Popular Now. Yeah, that play got him into the mob. If you research Taiwan during those years, he was celebrating with them in like Sweden for the New Year's. He was in the Super Bowl in February in the commercial that Rocky was in there with GMC. He was in it with his bike. So I did that, right? And so, or part of the team did that from the creative perspective. And that to me was like, I mean, I didn't need the credit and whatever, but to me was like, I need to do that in the music industry. And I've done that successfully. So after Taiwan was Bodega, and then when I did it on my own, I started with Matt, and I started with Rhetoric. And so, and now this is, to me, in the last 2 years, I've been sort of interning in my own experience as a founder and as a music manager. So we started this group called Bushwick Productions, that is basically a housing environment for the production of music, not necessarily and obviously to some extent not necessarily how we're going to blow up, or how many, what type of likes are we going to get, or what company is going to distribute our music, or like, are we doing DistroKid, or are we hiring someone? It's more like housing artists to mingle with other artists, so they can learn from each other and sort of create the building blocks that makes an artist, which is punching in, knowing how to cut verses, making a hook that's actually different. And that started as like a tryout, like with some artists that we started with, mainly young artists, 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 15-year-olds, all with parental consent. Obviously, you have to get those forms in, definitely get them signed, and then get them to work. And so eventually, I think we started working with like 12 artists, and now we're down to like 4 to 5 main artists, and all of them started during the same time that I'm telling you, in 2018, and they're very, very like good artists right now. And I think with more work that we got going on for them, one of them is bound to hit, and mainly because of the trajectory that we've been having, because of focusing on content display and quality control pretty much. One of them is 20 Vance Toria. She's now 19. I was been working with her since she was 16. All of her music has been developed by us. Then it's Rhetoric. Then it's Noah Millen from North Carolina. It's Matt from Arkansas, and another artist, Rhythm from Arkansas, an artist, and they all have different genres, which was mentioned today at the Warner Music Group, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And also, like Adele, I hope I'm not ranting or I'm good on time. You can cut me off too. So
no, you're doing great, Victor. Keep going.
Okay, cool. So working with Bushwick Productions now with a selective amount of artists. Now, after we knew that we had the content that we wanted, my partner and I decided to sort of have now a focus on distribution. And before we decided to sort of like, you know, typical in the music industry is very important. If you're independent, you need to have money to invest. If you don't have money to invest, then it's a no-go, even for opportunities. I call this, for example, the Young Dolph theory. Young Dolph got signed to Quality Control by showing up to the studio with $10,000 and saying, I want a song with this producer and I want your beat and record it for me. And the song was so good that they tried to give him his money back. And he didn't get his money back, but he accepted to get signed. But now we know as Young Dolph, as one of, you know, he's a big artist in the music industry, and he started by dropping money into people who already had worked with artists that he was like, how can I not blow up? I'm the best. So here's some money. So you need to have money. So instead of us just hiring someone with the little budget that we got, we started sort of seeing these places that we can grow with. And now networking and associating yourself is, I guess, a lesson that I want to bring out. It's like on the ground with the networking, it's not just like, oh, hi, how are you? It's like work in the room. It's not just like, oh, hi, how are you? Call me, exchanging contacts. It's more like, what can you offer and what can you bring to the table so somebody else can not only so you can benefit from it, but someone else can benefit before you. That and that philosophy will come a long way, because you're doing something for the kind of, because again, everyone's so individual, so it's really hard to say this is the key, but it's like you have to try to find a way to do this for the love of the content that you're doing. It's like, oh, I love rap music, so I'm going to make sure that I go to this summit and talk to these people because I want to grow in this genre. But, you know, I love all types of music, and today was mentioned in the summit, in the program, that, you know, to be a successful A&R, you have to love all types of genres, and you have to be able to listen to all types of genres. So my ability to understand that is how to look at rap or look at popular content and make it popular in a sense, either growing a new genre or continuing the popularity of that same genre. You can ask my colleagues. I'm the one that 2 years ago was saying the future is going to be live bands, even with rock, and it's happening right now. And there's been other things that you can tell by having your ears and your eyes to the streets. You can tell where things are going. So it's been a wild ride. So on the way, we chose Audiomack. Audiomack is a company that I had met some other two other founders. They're good friends of mine now. And when I walked the room and I was put in the same place with them, I was pitching my independent sort of ability to have these artists, and I got, I got invited to a quick listening in, and they liked some of the content, so they said, yeah, go ahead. So I started using Audiomack as an exclusive platform to release independent music. At the time, Audiomack was just starting to wanting to get its name out there. I remember clearly the meeting that I had with Pani, who's the founder and CEO of the company, was literally me pitching to him, what if a company like mine could give you outreach on the streets like any organization? At the time, my corporate experience has always been like in community building. I worked for Iris House. During all this time, I've been working a 9 to 5. In social services, I worked with the city of New York, and I worked with organizations, with the AIDS Institute. I've had different projects, and all of them really relate on how to work the ground and how to work a room, so we can get more people involved into the cause, that you then send a budget letter and then you get investment. So I'm like, the music industry should be the same thing. So I remember pitching to Audiomack the idea of street teaming, and like just going, only listen to if you want to listen to my music, you have to go to this app and you have to download the app and listen to it. And we created what we call the Russ theory. So Russ is an artist and he blew up the same way. So he had SoundCloud. He was a very popular SoundCloud, popular as in like a couple of thousand followers, popular on SoundCloud. And he was dropping singles. He was dropping albums, and he was just creating a lot of content. His stories that he drops out of college because of Kanye West's graduation day, and then he just decided to just make a lot of music. So while he was trying to make a lot of music, he was dropping albums, and he wasn't getting the same traction that he thought he would have gotten because he believes in his music. So then he tells at the Breakfast Club. This is an interview at the Breakfast Club. So he tells the Breakfast Club that that he just switched it, and he switched it from albums to singles, and he just was dropping singles once a week. And 2 years later, he dropped the single that needed to be dropped, and he went national with it, and then all of his catalogs went crazy. So he tells this in his interview to say like, drop singles and wait for that momentum to build, because when it does, you'll have money, from all the cataloging that you've done. So at that time, I was like, oh my God, that's so brilliant. And like, I love Russ. I think Russ is a great artist. He's super cool. He's like for the people, right? So, and he's on a lot of things anti-label for us on the ground. And I think that's, he's a man of his time. So I grab that and I tell my artists, we're going to AudioMac and we're going to just go hashtag only AudioMac, right? And 2 years later, I have Rhetoric with like tons of following from Nigeria, from Ghana, his region. Super AudioMac now is a well-known platform. We trend every time we release singles. Rhetoric has been releasing a single a week since for about a year and a half now. Same thing with Matt, same thing with all of our artists. So we've been literally for the last 2 years been working individually with each of these artists, not only on the creative part, going to studios, flying out, but creating features and networking in different states and different places. We've traveled across the states to find this connection, and we've signed artists from different states, and we've thought of this music situation of a music house from a national perspective. So we believe that our artists from Arkansas, for example, bring a lot to the table, and when we put them with our artists in New York, it's like a culture clash that comes from the philosophy that America is so big and it's beautiful and big that every single region has its own world. And knowing how to connect those things, to me, it's like I could work day and night, and that's all I would want to do. Like, why does a song take off in New York City or the northern region, and in the South you have a whole completely different monster? If you drive through the states, you put on the radio and you're in Atlanta, you're gonna hear songs on the radio that you're definitely not gonna hear up north, unless they're popular songs. I'm talking about subgenres or kind of pop genres, right? Like rap is now a pop genre, but you don't hear the same stuff I had in 97 that you hear like, at a radio station down in the South. So our one in the music industry is to connect that and to bring that together. So I guess to kind of wrap it up is that, like, I haven't had right now I'm in a Warner Music Group program in a small internship with it's like more informative than hands-on. We're not there, right? And thank God we're not getting coffee, so that's great, walking no one's dog, but they always say that's how you have to start. So I haven't necessarily have gotten like official internship positions, but everything I've done in the music industry has been about interning in groups that I've been able to be indispensable in. And that has led to my networking and my career. Right now, my clients that I've worked with and that I have like in on deck in my directory range from like the ones that I've mentioned to Pierre Bourne to Cream the Villain, there Kevin Gates out in the South, Mo3, some Spanish artists from Florida. I'm out here in Florida because I'm networking with Insane Records, and there's projects that we're working and we're building. I'm on NDA on that, so I can't say much, but we're building and we're trying and we're moving around. I moved to Florida for an opportunity, and we've done just exclusive content for exclusive places, and we've made sure that that's controlled in a way that goes beyond egos for artists and goes directly into the heart of where the music's at. and Bushwick Productions. And I'll put everything in the chat. I know I should be more efficient and be double tasking and try to get you guys engaged, but our website right now is on, you can see it is there. I'll put it here, but it's under construction right now because we're building EPKs for 3 of our artists. We actually, this weekend, I'm flying to Atlanta tomorrow. I have a meeting with Authentic Empire for 3 of our artists. They contacted us, they're interested. We don't run into these situations as in like, we're gonna go and sign to a label, because that's not what we want. We wanna question what they can offer us and what position they're gonna be, with what they're gonna take from us in the process. But just the fact that we're being invited to sort of analyze these 3 artists, I think it's a pretty big deal. So that's happening, and so that's why the website is kind of down right now, but I will put it here. And I'm sorry if I ranted. I guess you know, all I wanted to say was that that it is beyond just the institution, and it's on the ground, it's in the soul, and right now there's so much independent music right now that A&R is lost. You know, if Highbridge, the label, for example, with A Boogie, such a great person, great community, but they're so powerful and so big that if anybody's cousin in that place could become an A&R, and they have. So and that takes a lot, because an A&R will look at every single song that gets sent and will only find that one Whitney Houston amazing song that then everyone loved and still a classic, and that's in jeopardy right now. So we have to make sure that we keep that in mind, and I guess that's my lesson. And thank you again for having me here, and I hope I was able to enlighten my experience onto y'all.
Thank you so much for sharing, Victor. Your story is really, really awesome to listen to. And I think like one big takeaway from what you said is just kind of like, it almost seems like an internship is more of a concept than it is necessarily a title. So you don't necessarily have to have the title of an intern to gain the experience and the skills that come from an internship. And I think your story is sort of a testament to that, you know, if you can't find an internship somewhere, just get cracking, just do something, you know? So yeah, your story is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Now we're kind of going to switch gears and have Robin speak a little bit. And this is going to be a little bit more of like advice that could be given to students who are looking for an internship, and maybe even listing off some internships that we know about, that we know students have done. So whenever you're ready, Robin, take it away.
All right. It's so great to see you young people at the start of your career. And I've been working in the music industry for about 25, 30 years. I went to Westchester, graduated Westchester undergraduate, went to Temple Law School and got my law degree. And during those times of, again, getting myself through college, I always loved music. And one of my jobs was doing ushering at the Tower Theater during the 90s, which of course was amazing music, and also the Mann Music Center. And from doing that job, from ushering, I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is where I want to be. And I remember specifically being at the Mann Music Center and saying, watching between the B-52s, Stevie Ray Vaughan, every amazing artist that was coming through Philadelphia, and saying, someday I want to be booking these people. That's what I want to do for my career. That's where I want to be. And be careful what you wish for, because it actually may end up happening and coming true. So just a little bit about my history. I went from law school to moving out to Los Angeles. I knew I wanted to do something in the music industry, and I was very, very good at contracts in my law classes. So I said, well, this is going to be easy, because so much of what you do in the music industry involves contracts, paper. Either an artist is having a deal with a record label, or something where the agent is going to be having a deal with an artist, or a manager is going to be doing a deal with an artist. So there's always some contract that, or you're going to plan to do a video and you need to make a contract with the videographer. there were always ways that you could get into the music industry if you knew about contractual terms. So that's how I got in. My first job was with the Screen Actors Guild. I worked as a singer's representative and worked on films where there was live singing in films. I'm going to date myself. This was back in the Sister Act, Glory, anywhere where you had to have singing or some kind of singing involved in a film. And I went from there to working at A&M Records. If you're not familiar with A&M, the initials are Albert and Moss, which is Herb Alpert and Jerry Moss, which are two, giants in the industry. And they truly were the best bosses you could ever have. They were wonderful. From there, working in Los Angeles, I also taught at university, UCLA. I taught a music publishing class after learning more about music publishing and how important writing one song can take you in your career. I watched one of the songs we represented in our publishing catalog at A&M between Janet Jackson's catalog and Soundgarden, and represented Otis Redding's widow at the time with the song Respect. And there was so much money coming in off of one song every quarter that this woman could live off of it. So I realized the importance not only of the recording part of music, but obviously of being the songwriter as well. That was very lucrative. So from Los Angeles and working at A&M, I came to New York and worked at Universal Records. And from there, ended up working at Music Fest in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where my dream came true. That was the first place where, instead of working behind the scenes of doing recording agreements and those types of contractual things, I was actually booking Music Fest, which was a 10-stage festival that goes on for 10 days from noon until 11 o'clock. And during those 10 days, there were over 400 bands that perform, and trying to wrap your arms around the fact that you are booking 400 artists to come into one location in the town for 10 days, make sure they all have backline, hotel, water, not hospitality, but water, and making sure they can make it to the stage and play their 90-minute set and have contracts in place for them. Again, it's quite a feat to try to juggle all those things, but that was the first time that I actually was able to look on the stage and we would have Maroon 5 or, any artists that were coming that you could look up there and say, I brought them, I put them on the stage and I made it all happen. And look at these people in the audience that are watching, that are having such a great time because of work that I did. And I want you all to know you are in the right space. You are in the right majors. You're doing the right thing. Because again, when you get to be 25 years into a career, you look back and you realize that this is where you were meant to be. It's what you wanted. It's just the job that was meant for you. So my advice to all of you, and then I went from there to teaching and again, having a very, very fun career in music, doing all different aspects of things. And during my career, I've had many interns, and I've also placed many students in the jobs that I was teaching at in internships. And my advice to you folks, you new up and coming folks, would be, number one, to dream big. To think about your internship and how important this is for you now, because it is the one opportunity that you will get to actually be able to enter into a company that you really would dream of working in, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years from the time you're in school. But because you have the university behind you in an internship, the door opens for you. If you think I want to see what Arista's all about, they would say, well, do you have a college internship behind you? So take full advantage of this opportunity that the university is providing you behind you with the internship. But a lot of the work is going to be on you to get the right space. And I do want you to say, I do want to say dream big, because if you have a place, and Estelle and I have talked about this, she really loves the work that Live Nation does. And she wants to work with Live Nation. And they have an office in Bala-Cynwyd, but of course they have 100 venues in the Philadelphia and the region as well. So you think about that and you say, that's what I dream of doing. Now I'm going to get the internship there because ultimately that's where I'm going to want to be in the next 4 to 5 years. So go to their websites, find contacts, people who have been in the music industry, even Dain, who's going to be joining us, I know shortly. People can make that phone call for you and say, I've got this student and I'm telling you, they are awesome. They have one thing that they have in particular that you folks have at Millersville is you've actually been able to study industry information, music technology with many other students don't have that opportunity at their schools. They don't give them the real specifics and the hands-on that you folks have been able to have at Millersville. So you have a real plus in that. You've had classes in marketing. You've done campaigns. I know when I taught my class, they had to take one band all the way through from naming it to finding out what the look should be for the band, to getting the media pieces together, to actually finding a gig for them. This is all great stuff when you're going to go to an internship to show that you've actually done work. You haven't just read about in the book or watched someone else do it. You've actually had to put something like that together and understand. In my class, we had to put a tour budget together. They had to actually map out a band going from place to place to place to place, calculate the mileage, calculate how much gas was going to be, and figure out that tour. So that if you want to do an internship with a manager or an agent for an artist, you can say, I've done this already. Look at this. I've already been able to see that I understand we have to make enough money to carry ourselves on the road for this length of time to these amount of places. So make sure that whatever you're doing in class, keep those items. Adele had mentioned a portfolio and how important that was when she was showing people her actual product, the work that she could produce and the things that she could do and the help she could be as an intern. Very important stuff. Again, my suggestion, and Mike and I have talked about this, Estelle and I have talked about this, you have to also like doing. And if you are a person, I personally love paper. I love contracts. I love two people getting together. I love an artist that wants to produce music and a record company that has the money to support that artist in doing that and bringing them together with a document so they can both get their dreams to come true, what they want done. I like that. I'm not a person that wants to work a soundboard or a lighting board. I don't like running around and chauffeuring artists around because I don't trust my driving. But you have to think about the things that make you happiest in what you're doing in your school right now. And if you like details, and I had mentioned about putting a festival together, you have got to be detail oriented to do that. But you also might like to be out on the fairgrounds of a festival, helping the band set up, getting backline prepared, balancing the sound, making sure the lights are doing well. And again, whatever you as an individual like, that's where your internship should take you. Don't just settle for, well, this is what's available to me in a 1-block radius. Seek it out and say to yourself, I may live in Millersville during the spring, and here's my options. I may be able to work at Longs Park. I may be able to work with the Roots and Blues Festival that's starting again next year in February 2021. But if you're in Philadelphia, you may want to say, well, I'm going to end up working for Wawa Celebrate America's 4th of July celebration. That is a festival that puts together 5-6 incredible artists and puts them on one after another. And it is an entire semester's worth of work just to put that short festival together. But it's something that might be closer to your home. If you live near New York, and one of the students at Millersville live close to New York, and there are 100 agencies that are dying to have you work with them to help contract their artists out to venues, to put their tour route together. So no matter where you're located at, I had one student that was out in no man's land, New York, and she was saying, what do I do? What kind of internship can I get here? There was a fair. She had a fair in New York State Fair is the biggest fair in the entire country. And they had artists like Carrie Underwood and Garth Brooks. And so she got the internship at a fair. Think outside the box. know that music touches you in so many different ways, and that it's very easy to say, well, I'm just going to go to this because this is what I know. Think about the area where you have your resources. Do you have a car? Can you access the space? I only had a bike. I had to bike myself down to the Tower Theater and to the Man area and think outside the box. There's going to be a lot of other opportunities available to you than just you know, 360, TELUS 360, or just the Chameleon Club. There are so many other places. In Philadelphia, something like the Grammy Foundation, working actually for an organization, an arts organization that will help you support other artists, or the Songwriters Foundation. There are lots of opportunities. One of my first jobs that I was offered in Philadelphia was to be the booking agent for the World Cafe Live in Philadelphia. That's a fabulous place to do an internship, because you not only have the, say for example, the main venues where you're having music, but you also have to put together a children's little festival. So you start understanding what music appeals to children and kids, and it will expand what your resources are and what you're comfortable with doing. It's going to push your boundaries and make you challenge yourself. And again, you might enjoy marketing. You might like the creative aspect of looking at an artist and saying, okay, the entire album is going to be in pink. I'm going to put her upside down so that it's unique, and coming up with a campaign for an artist. And again, you might want to go to a place like a record label where your product is your artist. Whereas if you want to go and work for Union Transfer in Philadelphia as an intern, your product is the next show you've got to promote, and then the next show, and then the next show. So all of these different opportunities are all available to you. All of these places want free help. Now, of course, you'd love to get paid, but that's where you might have to work at a Starbucks or work at some other place to actually make your money. But this is a great opportunity for you to get into the facility and the place that you dream about working in the long term. So take full advantage of the opportunity. I know obviously right now in this pandemic, it is a true challenge, because personally, it's all about the live show for me. That's what it is about. And that's right now where we're being challenged. You may or may not know, but currently the state of affairs with the governor's order on July 15th only allowed for in-person indoor gatherings of 25 or less. And currently now, this is within the state of Pennsylvania. This is different for New York and New Jersey, but in Pennsylvania, they just moved it up to 20% capacity. So now you're starting to look at venues slowly starting to try to find plans to reopen. And you all as interns could be wonderful support in actually saying, okay, here's my manifest of seating for 400 people in here under CDC guidelines comfortably. So you will be a help and a resource to them in trying to restart business or get business focused and back being money-making for them. So what I just want you to know is, don't limit yourself, and always start with the thing you would love to do first. And then if you hear no, go to the second one, then go to the third one. But hopefully the first place you go, if you put your energy and you show them how vested you are in the type of business it is, or an organization or a company. When I was coming up, I really, really wanted to work for Virgin Records, because they had a roster of artists that I loved every one of them. So that was my focus. And then A&M and Virgin May. So ultimately, again, try to think long-term and use this internship time now to help you build that long-term dream that your career will ultimately follow. So be careful what you wish for. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, great. Circling back from your first point there. Yeah, I really like what you said about the New York State Fair. I thought that was a great example, again, of like an internship is really not a title, like it's an experience. So like you might get an internship that sounds very, very good on paper when there's, you know, one that might not look as attractive right under your nose that you're going to get just as much, if not more, experience out of. And I'm really glad you brought up that point. And I know you're a firm believer in that there's space for everyone in the music industry, no matter who you are. And yeah, I also appreciate you just mentioning that, you know, if something doesn't work out, sort of like what Adele said, it's not the end of your career. It's the new beginning of the new direction you're going to go in. So yeah, all of that was really great. Thank you for sharing, Robin. Next up, yeah, go ahead.
Part of that is, a lot of it is just the networking. You know, you've met one person, and even though maybe an internship didn't work out, exactly what you said, the person that you met in that internship interview ultimately ends up becoming part of your network, and ultimately may say, I remember this person, and she was really good. We didn't have an opportunity for her, but you really don't miss that. Don't miss this person. And it's a great way just to continue meeting people and finding different paths for yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Robin. We have our last panelist here is Dr. Dain Estes. If you'd like to unmute, yeah, just share a little bit about your career in the music industry thus far, and any sort of advice that you have for students that are looking for an internship in the industry. So whenever you're ready.
All right. You guys have all had classes with me. You know my background. I'll do it. Do you want to recap, Michael?
If you want to keep it brief, that's fine. Yeah.
Because it's not a brief, I don't have a brief career. I signed my first record deal when I was 19 years old. I was a musician on independent labels. I put out my own records for, I don't know, like 11 years. I had songs in movies, TV shows, and advertisements. I had a record that was played global, that was got radio play globally. I then made the rash decision to go to law school. And in law school, what I learned was, you know, they teach you how to be an advocate. And what I learned is I wanted to be an advocate for people like me. So after law school, in Denver, Colorado, I started an artist management company called the Vinefield, where I worked with, at one point, my company had 32 artists. Currently, there are, this might sound like a small yield, but there's still five. I mean, hopefully by the end of this, they'll still be playing. But I have there's 5 artists from that group, 3 of which I personally managed that have had international careers. So I found my way to teaching by accident. I actually was encouraged to apply to the first time I applied to a teaching position was because of my interns. The exact quote was, and I think, were you guys, I know Evan Taylor's talked to MMP before. Was anyone here for Evan Taylor? The guy from Domino Records. He was my intern, and he said to me, hey, there's a position open. I've learned more from you than I have anyone else, so you should apply. And that was kind of like the first thing that got me thinking about teaching, and just things took off from there. But anyway, my experience in terms of internships, I'm a little bit different in terms of how I gained experience by putting myself out there and getting my ass completely kicked. And then figuring out how to get my ass kicked less. I mean, over time, I think that was really how I learned about the industry was as an artist at first, which is just rejection after rejection after rejection, and finally, success, and then rejection, a little more success, and just incremental. And I mean, I also learned it when I was in law school. I kept a notebook of all the contractual and intellectual property mishaps I made. So I mean, I kind of have a different thing. I I've had people that have mentored me, but I'll be honest, with the experiences I had as an artist and then going to law school, those two things together, it was kind of a superpower in a way, because I had that industry experience. I had those contracts that I had signed that I didn't understand, and then suddenly I understood them, which was, you know, mind blowing. You know, I have a chart. You guys know this. I have a chart of all the money I didn't make, and every once in a while I'm catching other things because I didn't understand certain things in the music industry at the time. So I had a different path. I had, like I said, I had mentors, Mark Leisner, who managed Big Head Todd and the Monsters, you know, and some other, The Ugly Americans, some artists like that in the 90s, was a big help for me getting me started. But in a way, I mean, I didn't surpass what he did in the past, but I definitely surpassed him for what he was doing at the same time that when we were working. So, and there were times I was kind of on my own, but I had that background and then that knowledge that really helped me get through as someone working in the music industry. I had the opportunity to work for what was Red Light Management. And I actually had the, you know, so I could have gone on to work for a company that had like Gregory Alan Isaacoff and Nathaniel Ratcliffe and all this. I had those opportunities, but I chose to teach. And so from my end, it was that entrepreneurship side, and I just kind of learned the music industry because I was in it for so long. What I did see though was how my interns at the Vinefield agency and what happened with them. And then I can talk about students later. I was real, like, I had a lot, like there's a program in Denver, it's University of Colorado, Denver. And they have a very large music industry program. And I would constantly get kids sending me these emails asking about an internship. And to be honest, like those weren't really a lot of times I just kind of ignore them. Just didn't really have time. It was actually the students who reached out and said, could I buy you a coffee, or could I meet? I want to do what you do, and I want to talk to you about it. And like, I don't know why, but that was more appealing to me, to go and, you know, basically if I was out for meetings during the day and I had a half an hour, I'd be like, yeah, I'll give you half an hour. And we'd sit down and talk. And at the end of it, it always, like the first time it happened, it took me off guard, you know. The student said, I'd really like to intern with you. I was like, let me think about it, you know. And then I called that student back and I said, yeah, let's do that. I could use some help. And what I learned really from my perspective was, at first, they're really not a help because you're working a lot on the other side of the internship. You're working really hard. Like your day gets broken up because you're teaching the interns how to work. But I really enjoyed that. And I know other people in the music industry have enjoyed having interns too. And once you get past that initial, like, I'm teaching you what to do, your workflow does become better. Out of the interns I had 4, and they were all long term. No one worked for me for less than 2 years. Out of those, the name of the company escapes me, but he got a job in New York with a management company. I know the big artists they have. It's kind of a Americana guy, but anyway, I haven't touched base with him in a while, but that was his first job. Another intern that moved to New York he started with Tell Your Friends publicity, but he now does marketing for Domino Records, which is Arctic Monkeys record label. And in his case, I actually offered him a job. So his first year out of college, he was working for my company, and then moved to New York to work with actually, I wasn't even tell your friends, it was something else, but doesn't really matter. The other two, one of them works on a huge festival in Denver every year, and the other one is a talent buyer at a venue in, well, I hope he still is, a venue in Summit County, which is where all the ski towns are in Colorado. So I definitely felt like the experience I gave my students, my student interns, it obviously was successful because it led to them getting other jobs, and it did lead to great letters of recommendation and all that stuff. When, with Evan, who works at Domino, I mean, when I got the call from Domino Records that he was being interviewed, obviously he got a really good, I mean, I gave him the best possible recommendation I could, and he got the gig. What I've noticed with students, not every internship is going to have the same experience that it probably had with my management company, just to be honest. I don't think you should look at an internship in terms of, I'm going to do an internship. You should look at it like, I'm going to do some internships. I think having varied experience is extremely important in the music industry. This is a constantly changing industry. So being able to be, to know how to do more, like, I'm not saying in classes, obviously you guys learn stuff that how to do more than one thing, but to have that experience where you've done more than one thing, I think is extremely important. The other advice I will give you, and this is why I will sing Evan Taylor's praise so much, who's the guy who went on to Domino Records. When he left, like, when I hired him, because I realized that he was doing the work, to be honest, of like 5 interns. If you get in a situation that you're like, I'd love to work here, you've got to make it so when you leave, they realize that they're missing an employee that was necessary. How do you do that? There's a couple things. One, don't step on anyone's toes, but if you see something not being done, ask if you can do it and do it well. For an example, if you walk into a situation and let's say that regardless of the company, let's say that there's a problem, like you're seeing, like look over what they have, like look over their social media, look over they're like, just look at their contracts if you feel comfortable with that. Look at different things and see, like, if something feels like it could be done better, ask to do it better, ask to try. If they don't want you to, they're going to say no, but at least ask. If there's something that take initiative. If there's something that in a split second somebody needs to jump on and there's no one else to do it, no one else there to do it, do it. Do the work of 2 people. And I know that's like, oh my God, I can't do that. I'm one person. I know a great cloner. No, but I know that you can, it's an internship. The expectations aren't high. Don't live up to their not high expectations. Create high expectations for yourself. I think that's extremely important. The other thing is, if your internship doesn't go well, and this is something I will speak to. I worked in law school as a law clerk for a defense attorney. Why did I do that? I don't know. I thought I was going to be a defense attorney. Don't like the man. I learned that that's not what I wanted to do. That isn't what I wanted to do. And I'll be honest, my clerkship was a terrible experience. I worked for a terrible guy. Great attorney, terrible boss. Don't sit through that. I did because he was a very well-respected attorney. It doesn't matter how well respected somebody is, if you don't feel good in a situation, get out. The best thing I ever did was leave that. when I left my my third year of law school. And the thing that one of the most satisfying things I ever said in my life was when he said, "If you ever need a letter of recommendation, you know I'm here." I'm like, I won't need it. That was like the best thing I've ever said. I feel great about that. Don't stay in a situation, no matter how important you think someone is in the industry, just if it's not right for you, get out. But if it's the right situation and you're learning and you're getting, nothing's going to be perfect, but look, I think those are the best pieces of advice I can give you. The other one is, I have Estelle. Who else? Estelle, you're the only one, and Tristan, right? I talked to you guys about when you're in music marketing. I talk about when you're reaching out to try to get people, like you're trying to get something for a band, whether it be shows, whether it be playlists, which was what we're trying to do. Like, you're gonna find a number. You're gonna find the number of times you have to reach out to somebody before you find success. And it starts to average out over time, and you start to learn what that is. Look at your internship the same way. If you send out 5 inquiries for an internship and you get 1 interview, then no, you're going to have to send out 5 more for a second interview. Start looking at it that way. And I know that might not be, it might be totally different than what I'm saying, but don't send out three, don't apply to 3 internships and say, I'm good. You guys, these are competitive. People want to work in the music industry. It is a lot more fun than many other industries. People are passionate about music. So are you. But, my main point is reach out to more than one, and do more than 1 internship. Do something local while you're here. Then try to make plans to look at a bigger market. And Philadelphia is drivable or trainable or whatever. New York, to be honest, because I remember, Robin, you took a bus from Allentown. Was it Universal that you worked for? Yeah. It's doable in this area to get to New York City. Does it mean that you're going to be tired a lot? Yes. Does it mean you're going to get a lot of work done on a bus or a train? Yes. But it's doable. The other thing to reach out, this is the last thing I'll probably say, because you guys all look tired. The last thing I'll say is, if you want to intern somewhere and there's no, I never put out for what I did, I never put out like a posting for interns. They came to me, right? They just showed up like mice. Reach out. And don't just reach out and say, I want an internship, but reach out and say, this is a place I want to learn more. I'd love to talk to you. If you have a few minutes, I just want to I want to do what you do, so I want to pick your brain. And if it feels like it goes well at the end, say, I'd love to intern. If you guys decide you need interns, please keep my name there. I'll drop everything. I'll be an intern for you. And a lot of people will probably say, well, I guess I could use an intern. That does happen. Don't do that with a major label. But more relaxed businesses in the industry, I think that's something you can do. Any questions? I think that's probably the biggest thing. You guys have sat through this the whole night. Do you guys have any questions for anybody?
Well, if you don't have anything more to add, Dain, then we are going to open it up for questions.
Yes.
And you can address your questions to a specific panelist if you want, or just to all 4 panelists. But before we do that, I just want to say thank you, Dain, for coming in and telling us about your story and giving us your advice on finding internships. I think one of the more important things that I heard you say is to apply to more than one and do more than one in your college career so you can be a little more well-rounded. Because I remember earlier today, me and Victor were in a Zoom call, and we were listening to Craig Rosen, who works at Atlantic Records. And he said that he got his first job in the industry at Atlantic because he was so well-rounded. And he was worried, you know, that they were going to see him as someone who just bounced around. But in fact, that turned out to be an advantage for him, and it wound up getting him a job. So, yeah, very good point to bring up for sure. But yeah, we're going to open it up for questions. So if any of our general members have a question, or board members, feel free to ask away. And if we don't have any right off the top, we did prepare a few questions just to ask. So one thing I did want to ask, Adele, I remember you mentioned that after you didn't get the Arista internship at first, you still stayed in contact with the person that you spoke with in your interview, and you said you kept yourself at the top of their minds. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about, like, how do you strategize that, and like how do you try to keep yourself at the top of people's minds?
Yeah, of course. So basically, when I first had interviewed at Arista, I interviewed with my friend who was the marketing coordinator there, and then a promotions assistant, and then the marketing director who was like their supervisor. And the marketing director was the person that I really like tried to stay in contact with the most formally. Like the other two are like around my age, so I was already friendly with them, so they were very good resources to have. But in terms of, you know, maintaining that relationship with the marketing director, at the time I was still interning at Sony, so it was very easy to connect with her and be like, okay, like let's grab coffee in the cafe, because we're in the same building, floors apart, but I could kind of work with her very busy schedule and be flexible. I think that's the biggest thing, is flexibility, and kind of touching on what Dain was saying about, like, you know, just asking to grab coffee. I think that's the biggest thing, because when you jump in straight with the ask of, can I have an internship, or can I have this, can I have that, it's just not the best way of going about it. They don't know you yet. So yeah, it's really about just, you know, making yourself known to them, showing your enthusiasm for the work at hand. And I mean, people love talking about themselves, so I think that's the great thing about like suggesting coffee, is that, you know, people, it works in their schedule if you're flexible enough, and they can just talk about themselves, and then you learn and you maintain that connection, and it's really, really great. But yeah, so that's like how I was able to maintain that connection, and just like following up with emails like, oh, something happened in my own life, or I completed this project for my internship that's, you know, a good case study of like the type of work output that I'm capable of. Send it along to them if it's, you know, not confidential. And I actually created like a whole like little, I coded like a website for myself that acts as an extension of my cover letter, and just kind of has, it's sort of a portfolio, but it's separate than my photography portfolio. I can link that as well. But it's really just to show also the creativity, because sorry, I'm like jumping all around. But again, I think being well-rounded is so important. And it's something that at the beginning of quarantine, I was kind of grappling with, having graduated and not really knowing exactly like what direction I wanted to take things, like having so many varied interests. But I think as long as you're passionate about all those things, and you know, work to develop your skills in those areas, being well-rounded can only be helpful. And even in like my current job, like my current internship at Arista, I'm getting paid like minimum wage, which is, you know, money. So I'm happy, can't complain. But then they know that like I also know how to use like Adobe Premiere and After Effects, and like I have these types of skills. So I'm actually now being paid extra to edit a video for one of our artists. So it's like those opportunities arise when, I don't know, you also like advocate and make it known your skill set, you know, don't keep that under wraps. Like it's something to be proud of. So yeah, it's really about like being your own best advocate, because no one else is going to be that for you in the music industry.
Yeah, I agree. It could be kind of hard to brag about yourself sometimes, but like it's a skill. Like if you're not good at that, that's a skill that you can build. And yeah, I really like that you said like get coffee with people. Like don't just send them like a LinkedIn message of like, where can I get an internship? Like definitely like phone call is always the move. Like a Zoom meeting is great if you want to like get to know someone. I know like the first time we connected on LinkedIn, like I don't even know what the circumstance was, but I was just like, I wanted to set up a phone call and we talked on the phone, and now here we are months later and we've stayed connected and we're like collaborating on a panel right now. And it's really cool. Like those kinds of things really happen when you just actually get to know somebody and make a real connection, because it's hard to do over text. But yeah, that was a really great answer to that question. Another question I had, it's just kind of a little more general, but and this is for any panelist that wants to answer, but what are some of the most valuable things you've learned at your internships so far that you've carried with you after you finish there?
I would say my experiences, I think it's a creative sort of aspect of it all. A lot of the times that when, I mean, I like in my, you know, my experiences have been a little bit different, less institutionalized. So I've been out on my own on the ground, but I believe that, you know, what I carried with me throughout all of the experiences that I worked in the industry has been really my ability to take a step back and create in my mind and see where the future can lead. And that allows me to be goal oriented and sort of like have a reason. So, and that setting to me, it's like necessary. If I have to work with an artist and I sit down with them for an hour or two and we're planning out catalogs and what we're gonna do within the next couple of, like with content, I think of months to go, and we think of releases and everything that has to do with their music bubble and according to time and space. And I think like in regards to, see, the way that I see this is because like I believe that there are the infrastructures, right? So it's like I believe that there are visible and invisible infrastructures, and the visible ones are everything we talk about all the time, obviously the platforms or you know, publishing and all these different things that we need to do in the music industry. And then the invisible is what, you know, what we try to do to sort of like enhance in it. And it's really stems from creativity and be able to think outside the box, and then in a setting and in a long way. So those infrastructures, I believe, that are like special, and like it takes us, it's really invisible, but they take space. And if you know how to manipulate that in a good sense of the word, not that, you know, manipulation is often used as a bad term, but if you manipulate, if you abuse this and continue to sort of muscle it, it'll grow into a huge asset, and you'll be hired and you'll be able to work a lot when you can tap into that. And I think that's something that I've been able to bring along with me in different experiences, and you can get that in internships directly with the institutions that you work with, and you can work, probably even with more of a chance. I want to say that if a person in an institutionalized internship has more of a chance to make it in an industry than someone that does not. So it's very important to understand that as well.
Yeah, I can add to that a little by just saying, I think also a very important thing to take with you into your internships is initiative. And that's what's going to set you apart from the other interns, is like, as Dain was saying, like, what can you, like, what's not really working, or what can the company be doing better, and then do that yourself, you know? Whether that be with social media, maybe it's like the company website and you see areas where they can, like, you know, do some like SEO improvements, or, you know, what have you. But yeah, even taking the initiative, like, for yourself, of like, maybe you really liked your internship and you want to continue on with it, you know, don't just expect that they're going to ask you to come back, like, ask to come back. That's what I did with my first internship at Sony. Was after my first semester, I'm like, hey, I had a really great experience. I'd love to continue interning over the summer. And they were very responsive, and I ended up being their intern for not just the summer, but the fall following. And yeah, sorry, I was like getting called. Oh my God. Ooh, okay. Okay. I'm done.
Here too. It's weird. It's like someone's calling you at the same time.
Thank you both for those great answers. Unfortunately got cut off there, but yeah, definitely applying yourself makes a huge difference. And I feel like it's not so much about what you can get out of the internship, but like there's a side of it of like, what can you add to this company or this organization that you're interning with? Because that's what they're going to remember, is what you added, the value you added when you came in. And kind of like, I think Dain said this, where you sort of become an employee that they wish they had. So when you finish with the internship, they're like, oh my God, we can't lose this person. Like they're doing everything so well, like we can't afford to lose them. So yeah, definitely important to take on as much as you can, you know.
Yeah, being indispensable is very important, super important.
Yeah. I mean, definitely know your limits as far as like your mental health and everything, because that's important. But if you can afford to take on another task, like you absolutely should be the person to raise your hand and say, yes, I can do that.
Yeah, Adele, I was actually going to ask you, like, was there ever a time where you felt like you were so overwhelmed with the tasks you were doing and you had to either find a way to balance that out or like eliminate something in your life?
Yeah, so time management is always, you know, a necessary skill, especially in the music industry, when things, like, everything moves so quickly. And especially pre-quarantine, when I was still in school, I would like go to school, have like classes in the morning, run to my internship uptown, and then, you know, bolt to a concert and photograph the concert, and then go home and edit the photos, and then still have to like manage my schoolwork and all of that. There were a lot of days where like kind of in between those moments, I would be crying out of just like being so overwhelmed and stressed. And but I don't know, for me it's like I'm able to handle, like, I'd rather be overwhelmed versus like underwhelmed, underworked. And I think that's why, like, I think that's why I love the music industry so much, because there's always something to do. There's always something to do. But in terms of time management, I think it is really important to, I guess, when you're like applying to internships and stuff, and internships, jobs, what have you, you know, you're gonna want to take the first internship that you get, the first job that you get, but I think it's best to be a bit more selective and also kind of take into consideration, okay, who is this person that I would be reporting to? And do I feel like they are or would be, you know, responsive to me trying to like kind of negotiate like my time management and help them and have them help me with that. So I've found that some of my supervisors in the past haven't been supportive of that at all. They'll like throw on too much work, and I'm drowning. And as an intern, and especially like these were like unpaid internships, it's like, why I should be being paid for this. But but I think it's also, and this isn't always going to be the case, but when you can, I think it's really great to align yourself with supervisors and people in like managerial positions that are, you know, understanding that we're all humans. But I mean, that's not always going to be the case. So, I mean, I don't know. That is a difficult question. But I think time management skills definitely come with time. You kind of learn which tasks take you longer, which tasks are more like emotionally draining. And then you can kind of construct your, I don't know if that answers your question at all.
Yeah, it definitely does. It's just like, obviously with jobs that are in the music industry, any industry, media, it's not just like your 9 to 5, you know, like there's all these different tasks and like streams of work that you're trying to juggle. And I like, I'm in a similar situation right now with just school and working a few jobs where it's like, it just gets really crazy sometimes. And luckily, obviously, I'm working for, you know, I work for Dain, and then I have another job, and then I'm in school. So like I have a relationship with all the people that I'm working for and reporting to. It's a little scary, like going into an internship, like you said, where you're not getting paid, but the expectation may be higher than what you think you can perform with everything else. So
yeah, and I think that's really important, what you said about it not being like a 9 to 5. Like in your internships, like traditionally, like those will be kind of, you know, more set hours. But once you get into, you know, actual jobs, like full-time jobs, it's it's like, even if you're like in a more business oriented role, there's still going to be like shows that you have to go to like, you know, smooth the partners of like streaming labels or like whatever. There's always going to be something to do at night. It's a 24/7 thing. Like now, because of quarantine, it's we're able to kind of be more flexible with our schedules and kind of work in a way that makes the most sense for us, which I really like. So I'm hoping that that is something that continues even past past COVID and quarantine, and we continue this kind of like remote working to some degree, because I think it does help in managing things and maintaining your own mental health. You know, I've come up with coping mechanisms, you know, little things that I like to do to treat myself if I'm feeling too stressed out.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking, Ani. I had a similar question in my mind, but I didn't know how to word it. So thank you. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Another question that I wanted to ask is, how has your approach or your perspective on internships changed from when you first started working in the industry till now? So like, how do you go into internships differently than you did years ago?
I can talk on that, I guess, to start things off. So I'm someone that, I mentioned this before, just being very socially anxious and having, you know, going through mental health struggles throughout high school, and that kind of like leading into college as well. And kind of like the imposter syndrome of like, I like deep down, I know that I'm good at what I do, but like, am I really? And not wanting to annoy people by like emailing them too much, or, you know, reaching out to like, even if it's like my supervisor at an internship, I would just kind of like sit in the corner all day and not, I wasn't making the most out of the internship. And I think that's why those ended up being my least favorite internships out of the ones that I've done, is because I was passive. And so like the whole experience just wasn't, it was passive. And then once I kind of realized that, and I'm like, okay, need to be taking more initiative, I'm not like annoying, I'm their intern, I'm not going to be annoying them by like speaking to them. So yeah, just like making your presence known, even like if it's maybe not now, but like in the future, if you have like an in-person internship, just, you know, saying hello in the morning, and that, you know, just shooting the shit a little bit, like talking about the weather, you know, talking about things that aren't directly music related, talk about your life, like let them into your life a little bit. And and just show them your personality, and that's going to endear them to you a little bit more, and you know, create an actual like stronger relationship between you and your supervisor. And then moving forward, you know, they can be an advocate for you, and like write you recommendations, recommend you for jobs, etc., etc. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is just being more active in my internship, and, you know, speaking up, not just kind of sitting in the corner, but making the most of it.
Great advice. Yeah, I can see how that would happen too, where at first you know, maybe you're getting a feel for how internships work, and then you sort of understand it a little more, and you definitely can apply yourself more. Victor, do you have anything else to add to that question?
Yeah, I think just the in regards to educational philosophy, I you know, when you look at internships, you got to think of like an experiential learning, which is pretty much the original concept of internships. And obviously, you know, as we all know, it's come a long way from where it started. But what I believe when Dewey, with John, the great American philosopher John Dewey, when he wrote on it and sort of birthed it, the concept was mainly so you can get on the ground as much as you can to the same things that you normally would study on. So I always try to bring that in regards to counseling or anything that has to do with understanding the workforce. It really does start academically, in a sense, like you learn about institutions and the theory of institutions, but it's different when you're on the ground. And so being able to do that, I think, is very important. And then with that said, the way you actually see that on the ground, it's also as important. And so, you know, making sure that an internship, that you see it as not only a learning experience, but like Adele was saying, and Dain and the other panelists, it's really about from the creative part, and then from going outside of the box, or going the extra mile for something or someone. Those things are invisible, right, within the infrastructure, but very important when it comes down to learning from someone. If you share that coffee with someone because you bought it, they're just going to open up, and that right there is your experiential learning, because you'll know something, and then they'll bring you along, and then you'll be on the ground with them, and then you'll know what they did, and then they'll look to you because they taught you, and the ball keeps rolling, and you become an apprentice. And I think that's important in any industry, and in any industry that you're in. So that's kind of like, every time I think of internships, I think of how can I see the experiential side of this? Like, what am I learning today? What did I do that allowed me to know more about this industry that I know it's going to be my career in? So, sorry.
You must be a popular guy, Victor.
No, I'm so sorry. There's a lot of things going on, and tonight's a debate. I'm working. I volunteer here with the a state rep. So there's a whole thing going on today with the election coming up soon. So there's a debate today. So everyone's getting ready to watch.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I know we're getting close on time, so if anyone has to leave, absolutely feel free. I just have one more question, and this can apply to any of the four of our panelists. And it is just, what advice do you have for students who are unsure of where their place in the music industry is, or where they should start?
It's simple. I mean, just try different things and be open. You know, you guys, I think I don't know if I have this conversation I've had this conversation with anyone here, but like with students, when they come to my office and they're like, I'm not sure if I want to do music industry studies. I'm like, of course you're not sure. You're 18. I mean, right? When students come to me, I'm like, I don't know where I see myself working in the music industry, you know, and they're seniors. I say, well, of course you don't. You're 21. I mean, look, you know, throughout your life, you're reinventing yourself. I think there's a couple of things that I will say. In the music industry, get your foot in the door. Get your foot in the door, see and when you have your first job, see what other people are doing. There's my neighbor's daughter, I helped get a job at APA. Her first job was an administrative assistant. then she started working her way up to assistant, to an assistant agent, and then the pandemic happened. And then she babysat Brennan over the summer. But the point with this is, you know, for your first job, get your foot in the, if there's a place that seems interesting to you, get your foot in the door, and you're going to see what different people do. And the one thing I will say from my experience with students is that a lot of companies hire from within. So even if you start out, like it's not uncommon for your first job to be more like, you know, an administrative assistant, and then moving up to doing what you're initially wanting to do. I'm actually surprised with how much they do hire from within. I would have honestly thought, I mean, and I think there's two places people get hired. One is if you want to do something, one way to do it is to just get your foot in the door. The other is to start doing it on your own until you know, and if the goal is to work for a company, do it on your own until you're successful, and then, you know, you're going to be a shoo-in for the job. And that's kind of what I did. I don't know. So that's my advice. I'll end it there.
My very quick advice would be too that, you know, life is a journey, and you're going to go through it and find things that you really enjoy, and you're going to find things that you don't like at all. And just keep following those things that you really do love to do, and the answer will end up coming to you. You'll end up finding out what is the best career for you. It will always have been there, actually, in your heart.
Yeah, and I don't know if I really have anything to add to that, since I'm kind of like working through that question myself still. But so TBD.
Victor, do you have anything to add to that? I mean, I know we're all, you know, college kids.
Yeah, no, I think never, it really never give up, right? But like, make sure, like, I think we've all pointed this out, mental health is very important. And I think, you know, and we're humans and we have rights. And even though one of the biggest questions in internships, like, should I really be doing this? And if I'm going to do it, what am I going to benefit, you know, visibly and invisibly? But I think as part of the whole creative concept and going forward, just never give up on yourself. And then if in the industry you feel like you have that creative input and you can make things happen, always be positive about it and have affirmations, speak to yourself. I mean, that's what I do. You know, I have my own personal issues and my own boundaries too to myself, that sometimes I want to break them, and I do it through affirmations and making sure that I tell myself that I could do things that other people probably can't because they're not me, and that's just a huge deal. And then also make sure that you're within the limits and the boundaries of the law. A lot of the times, you know, because we're interns, there are a lot of things, or, you know, we didn't speak much about it, but there are, you know, sometimes we are the ones that take, you know, the hit for something that you know, we just didn't know what to do, and that sometimes is abused on us. So you know, making sure that you're well aware where you're at. I think one of our panelists was mentioning, you know, if the contract is good, then the heart is good, then we move forward. So making sure that you're not getting screwed over, and that your opportunities actually are there, and just keep that, never give up. There's a lot of times that you're gonna feel like you just want to quit and give up on everything, and just don't. Affirm yourself and just wake up, sprinkle some glitter on it, and go dance. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much to all of our panelists for coming in. I think we had a really awesome range of perspectives here, which was nice. Is like really like quite a meeting of the minds, if I do say so myself. And I just thank you all for sharing your perspectives and being so open and giving such amazing advice. That basically wraps up our meeting. So.